Clearly, there's inadequate supervision of this program and inadequate punishment when bad guys sin. We need to have a punishment that will discourage. You know, there's a $500 fine for riding in the HOV. Not very many people ride in the HOV because there's a huge punishment for that. We need to have a harsh punishment for this. You know, we're not going to do it, but if you hung the first person who did it, nobody else would ever do it, would they? And we need to have a punishment that just discourages people from doing it. These aren't stupid people. These are opportunists that are taking advantage of the system, and we need to encourage them not to do that. I'm very familiar with HubZone program because the first HubZone contract ever was in my district. It was Garrett Container in Garrett County. Don Morin runs it, great young entrepreneur. And they provide a lot of very good jobs there, doing very important work for the government. But there's another one of my companies that I want to talk about, which I think is exemplary of what HubZones ought to do, and this is Sycamore Associates. Great name. Who was a Bible character, went up a sycamore tree and came down, a Christian went up there, a heathen came down, a Christian, so he's a very ethical person. He started in a little HubZone in Frederick. It wasn't big enough. He had to grow. So he moved out to Garrett County. Garrett County, I have a county, 3 counties in Appalachia. 14% unemployment when I came to office. Really Appalachia. And great business out there. His people out there get 3 times the average salary out there. And he pays his people out there 2/3 as much as he pays them. They do contract work for NSA, and SA is very fond of them. He pays his people out there 2/3 as much as he pays them in Howard County when they live near NSA. So he can now hire 3 people out there to do the same work that 2 people are doing in Howard County because it's just a whole lot cheaper place to use. So this is exemplary of what HubZones ought to do. And I'm really angry that these people are abusing the system because every one of these cheaters takes money away from a great company like Sycamore Associates and Kurt Heckman, who runs that company, that are providing really good jobs and really uplifting the area. All of Garrett County is a HubZone because they have, as I said, 14% unemployment when I came to office and very low salaries. His people make at least 3 times the average salary. So this is doing exactly what HubZones are supposed to do. And does SBA not adequately manage this because you just don't have the resources?
Well, let me say first and foremost that I agree with you wholeheartedly that we should be about eradicating that bad element from the program, and we wholeheartedly agree that a lack of enforcement leads to further abuse, and we are approaching that issue from that perspective. We recognize, and I hope everyone understands, that we recognize the types of steps that need to be taken.
But you aren't taking that because you just don't have the resources?
I was going to finish. I was going to say, we recognize what needs to be done, and we know the proper oversight and the types of things we need to put in place. But we also recognize, and that's why we're going through this planning process, that it's going to add a substantial burden in terms of cost to how we conduct oversight over this program and the cost associated with doing that.
So it's partly our fault because we didn't give you the money to grow your staff so that you could have the staff. Now, my understanding is that the initial surveillance of this program is supposed to be self-policing. I know one small business person who is sitting in the audience here who's done a really great job of self-policing. He understood that that's what was expected. Nobody knows better who the cheater is than the good guy who lost because the winner was a cheater. And we expected that they would come forward as self-policing. That cost the taxpayer nothing. But I don't think we did a very good job of telling the HubZone community that that's what we expected, did we?
No, and I'm not certain that it works very well in this environment. We find that while self-policing has worked in other programs that allow for self-certifications of a sort, we have found that more recently firms are afraid of offending contract officials by filing protests.
But see, that's our fault. We need to tell them that they're going to be applauded for filing a protest when it's a legitimate protest, not going to be punished for it. That we just didn't properly advertise that. We've got to do one of 2 things. Either the community know that we really expect self-policing and they're not going to be punished for it, they're going to be rewarded for it, or we have to give you enough money so you can police the program, right?
Yes, sir.